Hey mamas, and welcome to the Entering Motherhood podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Marie Bilger, a wife, mom of two, VBAC mama, and doula. Join us every episode to learn from professionals, special guests, and moms just like you, ensuring that you know what you need to know and discover things that you didn't know before. I believe in you. Let's doula this, and let's navigate the transition of entering motherhood together. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Entering Motherhood podcast. I'm super excited to be back. I've been recording a couple episodes since the birth of our daughter, but I wanted to really make an intentional episode here about her birth and just look back on the experience a little bit and reflect and talk to y'all about it because it was such an amazing experience. It was our first home birth, although I've attended home births. This was my own personal home birth, which is unique in itself. And I'm just really excited to share some of the things about the birth and, like I said, just reflect on it and talk about it a bit. So, giving a basic rundown of timeline before I kind of dig into things, I had been wondering leading up to it, when in the world am I having this baby? I was walking around on Halloween and thinking, this has to be it. We have to be having baby soon. So I was getting in a lot of steps and walking around the neighborhood as much as I could and just cruising along. And some of my neighbors were saying, surely you have to have the baby soon. How are you still pregnant? Things like that. And I was just, honestly trying to embrace it and enjoy it. But emotionally, it was starting to get to me in regards of how long am I going to be pregnant? I honestly felt at some points like I'm going to be pregnant forever. I was going to bed every night wondering, is this going to be it? And waking up the next morning and saying, nope, I'm still pregnant. So it definitely was a little bit longer. And I had never been that pregnant before. With my first, I was only 39 weeks, almost exactly. And then with our second, I was 40 weeks. And then now with our third, I was 41 weeks. So maybe if we ever were to have a fourth, I'd go to 42 weeks. Who knows? I think that's what's really awesome too with these estimated due dates is you never really know when baby's going to come, and it doesn't necessarily reflect on your previous births either. So I had 3 different gestational births, 39, 40, 41 weeks. It's just interesting to know that that can happen. And so I have our third baby here with us. Her name is Junie. Her full name is Juniper, but we've been calling her Junie, and she is here. She was a surprise gender, so that was some of the excitement as well. But essentially, Halloween came and went, and we fully went into November, almost a whole other week, and she came on November 10th. She was one day away from that 11/11 potential birth date, but I am so excited that she's here. I'm so happy with how things went, and I'm just honestly in awe of it. So on November 9th at 10 o'clock at night, I had been doing pretty much the same routine that I had been for a couple weeks at that point. I was doing some light exercises, different movements, and I was also reading. I had a couple of books that I was rotating between. And then I also was doing my hypnosis with hypno babies and making sure that I played at least the birth affirmation tracks every night and listened to those. And so I was climbing into bed, getting all comfy cozy, scrolling on my phone for a little bit. And at 10 o'clock, pretty much on the dot, my water broke. And so initially I was like, oh my goodness, not again. Because with our first, my water had broke, but I went almost immediately to the hospital. And that was the birth that ended up in a cesarean. So I was already 41 weeks and my water broke. And I was just kind of joking around with my husband, like, oh man, I think my water just broke or I peed myself a little bit. And I went into the bathroom and I could see that my pants were wet. So I proceeded to go into the bathroom. And when I pulled down my pants, there was blood. And so, not only for personal experiences, but being a doula, blood is not always the best thing, especially when it's the first thing to have a substantial amount of blood. At least for me, it seemed like a decent amount of blood. But kind of looking back and reflecting on it now, I think because my water had also broken and the blood was present, it made it seem like a lot more than there actually was, because it was just the fluid from my water breaking with a mixture of blood as well. At that point, there were absolutely no contractions that I could feel or notice. So, because of the blood, I was a little alarmed, a little concerned. I had never experienced that with any of my clients. I had not experienced that personally as well. So, it was a little bit of a shock for me and something that I didn't plan for. But because of my preparation and because of all the work I've been doing, I definitely was a lot more level-headed and able to kind of take a breath and pause for a moment and say, okay, like, what are we going to do from here? So at that point, I had contacted my birth team. I had reached out to our doula, our birth doula, who was also doing photography. We reached out to the midwife, and we also at that point had reached out to our sibling doula, who was here for our older children during the birth. And so we wanted to let them know what had happened and let them know what's going on and make them aware of the situation, because as a doula, I always like to be informed and up to date on anything. And it's always good to just have other people to bounce ideas off of, have people to chat with and discuss things with. And so I really wanted their support and their input and their knowledge too as well on what was going on. So I had said, hey, pretty sure my water broke and there's blood. And so my midwife had asked for pictures. And so, of course, I sent it to her. And as we were chatting and talking, and I was continuing to have fluid and my waters and blood and everything come out, I also lost my mucus plug at that point. And of course, then that was bloody as well. And so there was just a decent amount of blood that was going on. And so that was, something that we had to all discuss through and talk about. My midwife did recommend that I go to the hospital just to get checked out, just to go see what was going on. I also had been in a minor car accident a week prior, and I had never gone to the hospital to get checked out or look into that, because I don't believe I ever hit my stomach in any way. And just leaning into my intuition, I felt like everything was fine, baby was moving fine, everything was going on. But now in the moment, seeing the blood, have had knowledge that I had been in an accident a week prior, a lot of things honestly just started circling through my head. And really what I wanted to just hear was, everything's okay, baby's okay. You're doing the best that you can, and we're just going to see what happens. And so my husband was very calm too. He was kind of looking at me for a little bit of guidance on, well, what should we do? But also very much giving his own input and insight into how he felt. And so I had also called our doula, our birth doula, and had a quick conversation with her while texting the midwife and trying to come up with a game plan. And so, since the midwife said, ultimately it's up to you, but I'm going to suggest that you go to the hospital and just get checked out, I still just sat with that and then talked with my doula, who, threw out some different suggestions and different ideas and of course, when there's blood involved, it can be a mix of things. And on one end, knowing as much as I do now, I know a lot more different possibilities of what could have been happening and what was happening. And ultimately, we decided to just stay home. I think for one, I felt like baby was still okay. I didn't know if it was a girl or a boy at that point, but now we know it's a girl and she was moving fine. I was feeling fine and contractions hadn't even started yet. Since everything else seemed okay, it was just some fluid and whatnot coming out and nothing else was really kind of occurring. Then we decided let's just kind of sit at home and wait and try to get some sleep and just try to feel it out and see what's going on. So I felt really good after talking to the birth team and talking with my husband and really coming up with a decision on a game plan and what we were going to do moving forward. I felt really content and okay and good with that decision. And so I tried to lay down and get some sleep. So this was probably almost an hour or so later now at this point. I had gotten into different clothes that it didn't matter if I was leaking or bleeding or whatnot. And I climbed into bed again and figured I'd try to sleep as much as possible and see what things were doing or going to happen. Because, with your water breaking, things can either happen quickly after that, or things can not really start to pick up or get going for 12 to 24 hours. So it's really kind of this whole range of let's just wait and see. And so I had already been waiting for so long for this baby to come. Like I said, I was 41 weeks. And so we just figured, let's just wait and see. Let's see what happens. And so we were kind of excited, kind of relieved that at least some sign of labor was happening and something was going on. Because honestly, earlier that night, after I had done my exercises and my reading and everything like that, I was just crying and saying, I'm going to be pregnant forever and what's going on. And the conversations that I was having with my husband and my doulas and the midwife, and just kind of, let's just have this baby and baby's going to have to come eventually. And so it was really kind of exciting to just know that something was happening and some progress was occurring. And so even though there was bleeding, we were excited to kind of get the ball rolling. And so I tried to close my eyes and rest for a little bit. And then probably around 1:30 in the morning, so maybe I had gotten another hour or so of sleep at that point. But at around 1:30 in the morning, things definitely were picking up. I was definitely feeling things. There was definitely a lot of sensations. And at that point, I kind of nudged my husband, who had fallen back asleep. And I said, I think it's time to start doing the list. And so the list was this list of different things that I had kind of created for him to do when things started to happen, when I felt like I was in labor, when things were looking like it was go time. There was a list of things for him to work on and do. And I mean, most of it was very simple things like move the cars into the garage so that there's room for the birth team, tidy up a little bit, set up my birth sling, make sure that my birth ball is close by, make sure that I have water, make sure that I have electrolytes, just different things like that. Like get snacks ready, make sure you eat, make sure you are feeling energized, like just different things like that. So he just started going on his list and knocking out some of those things and getting ready as I just continued to kind of move through the contractions and see how things were going. And so he quickly knocked out a lot of that stuff and came by my side and was ready to support me and be alongside me. And the really cool thing is both our birth doula, who was also our photographer, and our sibling doula live really, really close. And so probably about 2 a.m., they were starting to arrive and get there. And that was really nice to know that immediately when things really started picking up and things started getting intense, I had the support team there for me. And so that's another thing that, if you feel like things are going to progress quickly or you're really interested in having your birth team close and available to you, consider where they live or how quickly they can get there. And so I think also because it was the middle of the night, it's a lot easier for people to just kind of be able to drop things and go. They're not in car line or at the grocery store or out and about. They're home and they're ready and they have all the things that they need and they can just come. And so that was really nice to know. Our one doula, Fiona, showed up first, and so she was our sibling doula, but since both of the kids were sleeping, it was really nice that she came in and also just helped support me in the moment. And so one of the main things I specifically remember asking her and having her do is my hair. And so up until this point, I had been doing my hair and making sure that, I had showered every day or often so that, when birth did happen, when the time did come, I felt like I was presentable because, hey, I was getting photos done and also there was going to be people around and I just wanted to look my best. And sure enough, this day I had not done anything with my hair. I had thrown the towel in and said, I'm going to be pregnant forever. And that's when it all happened. And I think it really is like when you surrender, when you let go, when you just say, whatever may be will be and lean into it. That's when it comes. When you're trying to plan and you're trying to predict and you're trying to do all the things, sometimes it just doesn't happen. And so that day specifically, I had not done anything with my hair, and I don't even think that the clothes that I necessarily wanted to wear were clean and ready, so it was just a little bit of a whirlwind there. But I had asked her when she showed up, "How does my hair look?" And what's really cool is too, Fiona used to be a hairdresser, so I had confidence that she could do something fairly quickly during my contractions and everything to help me just feel better about how my hair looked. So she did this really pretty braid, and some of the pictures from that day have that braid in it. Mind you, by the end of things, it had just gone all crazy, but she had done a really nice braid, and it also felt really good to just have somebody brushing my hair and tending to me and nurturing me when I was in labor. And so that was an extra added thing that I had never done with my other two pregnancies and other two labors and births, but it was definitely a nice feature and a nice little distraction to have somebody sort of playing with my hair, braiding my hair, doing my hair, and just knowing that somebody was there supporting me. And so she showed up, our other doula showed up, and things were just really intense really quickly. And what's interesting is I feel like I always want something different in all of my births as well. So my son's birth was a lot of hip squeezes, and so I thought, this is probably going to be the same. But for whatever reason, I needed a lot of belly lifts and squeezes, and so I think the way that Junie was positioned, we really needed to lift her up and get her back into a more centered position so that she can move through the pelvis. And so what I was feeling and a lot of the sensations I was having was a lot of lower abdominal sensations, a lot of pressure there versus really down deep in my pelvis. And so my husband was lifting and tucking and gripping and holding my stomach a lot of the times. And we were using the birth sling, which I highly recommend. I was very happy with it, and it held my weight, and I could pull on it, I could lean on it, I could rest on it. I could do a lot of different things with it, which was nice and super helpful. And so I had my husband behind me. I was sitting on the birth ball, and essentially almost the whole time I was just sort of swinging on this sling. Our midwife was a little bit further away. She lives about probably 45 minutes to an hour away. And so we knew that it was going to take her a little bit more time to arrive. So I was really just trying to remain as present as possible. I was trying to soak it all in because, we have been saying this is probably our last pregnancy. This is probably our last birth. This is last baby, things like that. And while that might change, who knows? I'm pretty sure this was our last. So I really was very intentional and very aware and present during this whole birth, specifically because I wanted to remember as much as possible from it and really just soak it all in. So a lot of times I was just kind of opening up my eyes, looking around, being more aware of my surroundings and what was going on. I was, making eye contact with my birth team, with my husband, and just looking around and seeing what was going on and what was happening and everything like that. So at that point, probably another hour or so had passed and my midwife came. It was probably now about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I was really feeling things. I was really going through it. I was really having a lot of intense sensations and emotions. I was still a little bit concerned about the blood and hoping that, nothing was really going on, but my intuition was telling me that I was safe and the baby was safe and that I could just continue going how I was. It was a little bit of an internal struggle trying to dictate between what I was feeling and what could maybe be a red flag or a sign of concern, because if there was something with the placenta, if there was something going on in that regards, and I was in a lot of pain because something more extreme was going on than just labor contractions, then I wanted to make sure that I was feeling those things and aware of those things, but it wasn't any sort of constant lingering pain. It wasn't excruciating, but it was very, very intense and coming in pretty powerful. So when my midwife did come, she was kind of observing for a while. I had noticed that she had entered the space and she was there and she was reassuring me that everything was fine and everything was going well. And I was very, very vocal. At least I feel like I was. I feel like I was making a lot of noise. And I remember them saying to me, "Hey, Sarah, if you want to have this baby in the birth tub, we should probably move in there. Things are seeming like it might be soon." And so I totally agreed. I felt like things were, really intense and really picking up, and I was having a bunch of different sensations, but I still wasn't feeling anything super low. I wasn't feeling that pooping sensation or just that, downward sensation, and I wasn't feeling the urge to push yet, things like that. And so when they had asked me, like, "Are you feeling pushy? Are you feeling anything like that?" Because of my doula experience, because of my knowledge, I could tell, like, no, this isn't pushing yet, but it is very intense. It is increasing in intensity. And so I still wasn't sure up until this day if I wanted to have a water birth or not. I have very mixed feelings with water birth. While I think it was an amazing experience, I think it really helped alleviate a lot of the sensations and things like that. I just don't necessarily like being in the muck of it all. And I knew I was already bleeding. I knew my water had already broke. And so it was just a little bit mixed feelings of what am I going to be sitting in, floating in, just a lot of personal yuck around water birth. And so at that point though, I was very much like, I want to alleviate some of what I'm feeling. And because especially I needed a lot of the belly lifts and there was a lot of, heaviness in my belly still, I figured let's get in the water because it will definitely help lift my belly and probably just feel really good. And I was also insisting that I needed to get checked. And so I got into the tub probably around 4 a.m. and I was saying, I want to be checked. I want to be checked. I want a cervical check because at this point I just need some sort of reference, some sort of indicator of where I'm at, even though I know from experience and I know that it really doesn't determine anything and there's no crystal ball and all of these things. For me, just mentally, I just wanted to know what I was at. And also, I was very into doing a lot of my own internal exams and feeling her and feeling the sensations and moving around and doing things. And so I was curious with trying to feel myself and then having the input from my midwife as well where I was at. And so at that point, when I was checked, it was determined that I was only about 5 centimeters. And so this was really surprising to me because I was going through it and having a lot of sensations and feeling a lot of different things. And so I really felt like I was a lot, quote unquote, further along than what was physically being shown and represented in regards to my dilation. And so at that point, I'm not entirely sure if I had asked people to leave, if somebody had asked people to leave, but something happened and I felt the presence of everybody kind of fade away. And so my husband was still in the room with me. We were in the bathroom. I was in the tub. My husband was still there, but there was just us. And so I guess people wanted us to have a little moment to ourselves, give me some space and time. And also probably, from my own experience of being a doula, it was probably like, oh, she's a 5. So we still have some time. So let's kind of like regroup and step out, eat a snack, go get some coffee, whatever it might be. Because mind you, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. And so I'm not entirely sure what was happening on the birth team side of things, but on my side of things, I went deep mentally and I really had a moment to myself where I just went in. At that point, I was also listening to a lot of my hypnosis tracks before I had gotten in the tub. When I got in the tub, I was worried about just having my headphones in the water, and so I wasn't listening anymore. And so I think we had a fan running that almost was like white noise going. The mood was really nice. Someone on my birth team had set up all these little tea light candles that I have and dimmed the lights and it was just really nice to relax and be in there. And I I had this deep, deep talk with myself and I was like, get yourself together. We are having this baby. You are safe. Stop worrying about the blood. Stop getting in your head and just surrender and relax and release and do what you need to do on every single contraction to get there, to get your baby here, to birth this baby. And so I just got in the zone and every single contraction, every single wave that came, I gave it my all. I focused. I felt myself expanding and dilating. I felt myself relaxing and releasing. I felt my baby coming down. It was just this really cool internal experience mentally and physically and just spiritually. I was ready to bring my baby there. I had been pregnant for 41 weeks and I was ready to just meet them and figure out if it was a girl or a boy and get things going. And so it really wasn't that much longer of doing this and going through the different sensations and really feeling myself out that I felt the need to push. And so I was shocked. I was surprised. I was, screaming out for my midwife. I was like, where's Janelle? Like, I'm feeling pushy already. So like, what's going on? Like, is it possible? Like, has it been that long? Like, how could I go from a 5 to feeling like I'm complete and I'm ready to push? And so she had come back in and she said, "Hey, if you feel like you need to push, then go for it. Like, lean into your body." And I really was, feeling every sensation and having that urge to bear down and push my baby out. And so I stubbornly enough though insisted I needed to get checked. And I don't so much think it's not trusting in my own body. It's just I really felt like I needed to know, especially with if this is our last, I wanted to really tune into what I was feeling and what was going on and how I could relate to clients moving forward and different sensations that they might be feeling and things like that. And so I had her check me again, and I think I was probably still only 9 or 9.5, but basically it was okay to start pushing because once I did, it would just melt away the rest of my cervix, and baby was right there. And so at that point, like I said, I was also doing my own internal exams and trying to feel, engage, and see what she was feeling as well. And so I was kind of like, what am I feeling for? Like, where is it? And so even though my cervix was pretty much fully dilated, baby was still pretty high in there. So I could feel towards the back, and I could feel what was going on, which was really cool to experience and feel for myself. And so I just continued to bear down and see how that feels and keep on going. And so this was probably now at about 5:30 in the morning, maybe even a little bit later, maybe 5:40, 5:45. I just continued to bear down and go through each contraction, just trying to bring my baby closer and earthside. And so once her head started to descend down, I was feeling every little bit of it. And then once she was crowning, I could feel the whole extent of her head. And I was at this point, I was just really trying to slowly breathe and calm down because I was so nervous that I was going to tear. And so I wanted it to just slow down and I wanted it to stop. But I knew that I had to keep powering through and keep going to get her out because no matter what, at that point, baby was coming. And it was just a really, really cool sensation and a really cool feeling. And just knowing that I could feel my baby fully coming out and be there with them during this process. And, of course, my whole birth team was there as well. And since it was still about 5, 6 in the morning, then the older kids were still sleeping as well. So all of my birth team was there and ready. And so I actually have some video of me birthing and laboring, but the initial moment that she came, I actually don't have video footage of that. So I wasn't even planning or expecting to have video of any of the birth, but our one doula, she did set up her phone and she was able to record some of me laboring and then initial moments after my older daughter had come in and announced if it was a girl or a boy. So there's those moments, but I don't have the actual physical birth, which is kind of crazy because that was something that I feel like I just sort of blacked out on or didn't really know what was going on because I remember her whole head truly being there and feeling the full extent of it. And then feeling a gush and this sense of relief when her head came out. And then I can remember squeezing the rest of her out, but I was reaching down and trying to grab her and looking back at the pictures as well too. My husband was holding my one hand, kind of like supporting me and having something to grip onto when I was having contractions, but that hand was still kind of restrained. And I don't know if he didn't let go, if I didn't want to let go, but we were just holding hands. And so I only had one hand available to kind of grab and catch my baby. And so I think that's a little bit what was going on. And I also closed my eyes because I didn't want to see if it was a girl or a boy before my daughter came in. So I think I had a lot of these different things like circling around in my head, and I couldn't quite do what I needed to do to catch my baby. And so for a little bit, she sort of was coming out and just floating around in the water down there. And I remember my midwife saying, like, grab your baby. Okay, Sarah, like, you need to grab your baby. And then she helped me, and she reached in. But when she did, I don't really know like what had happened, but I think she grabbed a leg and her head, and she was all kind of just flipping around. And I can remember her legs were still kind of in me when my midwife was reaching down and helping get her. And I could feel the full length of her coming out of me, which again was just super cool, super fun to experience, and the weirdest but coolest sensation ever. In the moment, it's, going through all the contractions and feeling all those different sensations. It's not necessarily fun, and there definitely were some hard moments, but looking back on it, it's just so amazing what our bodies can do, and it's the coolest thing ever to be able to fully embrace it and experience it. So, baby came out, and I eventually grabbed her with both arms and asked for a blanket immediately to kind of cover her up so that we couldn't tell what she was. And just looking at her face, though, I said, it has to be a girl. It has to be a girl. Like, she looked exactly like our oldest daughter did. Just so much facial features. She just looked like a girl to me. I just saw girl, and I was just so excited that she was here. Just super squishy cheeks, super squishy body, just amazing. And so she was born at 6:16 in the morning. And so just again, timeline, water broke at 10 p.m. the following day. Contractions started at 1:30 in the morning. Our birth team started to arrive at 2 in the morning. Then my midwife came around 3:30. I was checked at 4 a.m. and was only 5 centimeters. And then 6:16, she was born. So again, like, just going back to the dilation doesn't necessarily mean anything or have any indicator of when baby's going to come. It's just a number. I mean, I had gone from 5, which is still considered technically early labor, to fully dilated, fully complete, baby in my arms 2 hours later, not even. So you never know what can happen. And I just was so relieved and so in awe that she was here. And so our other doula, our sibling doula, went in and grabbed our daughter, who was still sleeping, who was in such a daze, and just, I think she was confused at what was going on. But she came into the bathroom and she got to see her little sibling just in my arms, in the tub, in the bathroom. And I was just holding a baby. And so she had gone to bed the night before knowing that I was pregnant, and she had woken up the next morning with brand new sibling. And so we had her come over alongside the pool and pull back the blanket and tell us if it was a girl or a boy. And she actually said it was a boy at first. And so I think the confusion was she saw the umbilical cord and thought maybe it was a penis. And so I looked and I was like, let's check again. Like, are you sure? And I said, do you see a penis or a vagina? And so at that point, she was like, vagina. And I was like, yeah, so that means it's a sister. And I said, we got our Junie. We got our little Junie. And so, we had names picked out for both a boy and a girl, but I was so set on the name Juniper and so set that it was a girl. I was convinced and really trying to pull into my intuition. And so, not that I was going to be disappointed if it was a boy, but I really, truly had an inkling that it was a girl. And so when she came out and it was determined that it was a girl, I just felt really reassured and really happy and excited that we had another little girl in the family. And so our daughter got to see that it was a girl, and then I think I said something probably along the lines of like, "Can I get out? Like I'm done. I don't want to be in the water anymore." Like we did the whole reveal. we were here and I want to get out because like I said, there was, some muck in the water and I had still been bleeding and things and such of that sort. So I really just wanted to get out. And so we had gotten out of the tub. That was the whole birthing experience, but we still had the umbilical cord completely attached. The placenta had not been delivered yet. And so my husband and my midwife helped me navigate and get into bed so that we could deliver the placenta and just get checked out and see what was going on and make sure things were all okay. And so I was just in pure bliss, la la land, on a birth high and just enjoying it all. But I was definitely still also feeling the sensations of the placenta getting ready to release and detach and things like that. And so we kind of just chilled in bed. Our sibling doula took the older kids to play and entertain them. I think my son had either woken up on his own a little bit after that point, or maybe they had gone in to wake him up and he came in to meet his new sibling. And he was so excited that it was a girl too. He had been saying, team boy for a while, but in the last few weeks, maybe month or so, he had switched over to team girl. So I think he's just super excited and super in love that he has another sister. And it's just been such an experience and so amazing. And so the placenta came out and that went fine. And I got to just lay in bed and relax and enjoy and soak it all in. And I honestly feel like being at home was so amazing, such an experience. And I reflect back on it and try to understand how it would have been different if I did go to the hospital and what things would have been like. Because one, I was GBS positive, so I guarantee that they would have suggested or tried to hook me up to antibiotics. Two, they probably would have wanted to start some sort of induction or some sort of Pitocin, or at least suggested it. Three, they would have been doing cervical checks to even just get me in or wanting to do them. So many unnecessary interventions would have been occurring if I would have went in when the blood happened and when my water had broken. And that would have just kicked things off and created a whole different experience. And obviously, I could have declined everything. I could have just asked to get checked and made sure baby was moving okay and things like that. Mind you, who knows? But just in general, the overall experience, I feel would have been so different. And even just the support and the comfort and the relaxation that came with being at home and being in the birth pool, having people that I knew, 100% knew, and had control of that. There was nobody that came into our home that I didn't know, that I didn't feel 100% safe and secure with. And my children were home and they were just right in the next room when all this was happening. And I think that's just such a cool perspective and experience that you can't get when you go to the hospital. They were just sleeping in their own beds right in the next room and immediately got to meet their sibling. I immediately got to be in my own bed, comforted by all of my own items and comforts. And oh yeah, I don't know how I could forget, but we had also contacted our postpartum doula chef that had come, the other Taylor. So I had two Taylors, a birth doula Taylor and then a postpartum chef doula Taylor. And Taylor had come and was cooking up a storm downstairs and prepping a bunch of food for us and creating our first meal and just making some really delicious stuff. So like I said, she was born at 6:16 in the morning and I had been laboring all night and didn't really get much sleep. And so obviously I wanted that long, good newborn sleep right after they're born. But I got some good food in me, and we were fed so well those first few weeks because of Taylor, which was super, super awesome. Her cooking is delicious. I wish I could have that every single day, every single week. And that was just such a extra added bonus that I'm so thankful for. And it just smelled delicious. It tasted delicious. I, got to nourish my body immediately with such amazingly delicious, tasty food. And so that was awesome. And we didn't have to leave. We didn't leave our house for weeks because I didn't have to. And so not until my husband had returned back to work and I needed to take my kids to school and get Caroline going and things like that did we even get in the car, have to go in a car seat, have to navigate around the schedule and feedings and things like that. So again, it was just really, really cool and something that you don't get to experience unless you have a home birth. And so I'm super thankful for the opportunity to be able to birth at home, to have had experienced that. It was just such an intense and an emotional, just a mental roller coaster, but it all went so smoothly. And like I said earlier, obviously like going through it, it's not the best of things and it's not always fun. And there's different things and you're trying to, make light of the moment and you're trying to, like I said, like I was just trying to be very, very present and very aware of the people that were around and things that were going on and all the different sensations. And it's not necessarily the funnest thing in the world, but immediately after, and now 3 months later, looking back on it, I think it's one of the coolest things that I've ever done in my life. It's one of the most amazing experiences that I will always be able to remember and cherish and look back on. And all of my births have been truly, unique and amazing and great on their own. And one fear that I had going into this one was, how am I ever going to top my second? He was quick and everything was flawless, it seemed. And, he just came and it was all under probably 6 or 8 hours for him. And he came right at 40 weeks and was just ready to go. And it was just a really nice experience. But you can't beat being at home. Everything just went so smoothly. We're healthy and safe and fine and home and here. And I was just able to, say I did it and I experienced it. And I have walked through that journey with so many other clients and been able to witness what home birth is like for them. But to be able to now have gone from a hospital birth that ended up in a cesarean, a completely unmedicated hospital birth with my second, and now a home birth, I feel like I have really experienced a huge range of births myself. And I honestly would just suggest home birth for anybody and everybody because you can really make it what you want. And it's just so homey. It's just so cozy. It's just a really unique experience. So that is the birth story. That is how our little Junie came into the world and how things went and are going. And I'm just super excited to share more about what we've been experiencing, what's been going on, and sharing my motherhood experience and input and whatnot because I love being a mom. I honestly love motherhood so, so much. And I've gotten to truly sit with everything and soak it all in. And this has been my favorite postpartum experience yet. I love our family and I love what we're creating. And I just want other people to be able to experience that joy and excitement and that love and that desire for all that is good. And so I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode and you got something out of it, even if it's just kind of the experience and the story and the excitement for birth and for home birth. So thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you, mamas, so much for listening. Remember, you are a rock star. I believe in you. Let's doula this. Let's crank it up a notch, and let's kick it into high gear together. Hit that subscribe button. Share this episode with a friend. Message me, email me, call me, beat me. You know how to reach me. We're doing this, mamas. I am so excited to catch you here next week. This is your one-stop go-to place for helping you find the resources you need to make the best choices for you and your family during pregnancy, birth, and most importantly, postpartum. See you later, mamas.